Hi, welcome to Fiscal Solutions YouTube channel. On November the 5th, Fiscal Solutions team held a webinar regarding fiscalization in Germany, addressing very important topic, obligatory POS export. I would like to thank you all for joining and also to thank you for all the compliments and questions that we got during the presentation. Unfortunately, we didn't manage to answer to all of your questions during the webinar, but we promised to provide answers after the webinar. In this video, due to the complexity of this topic, as well as due to the great interest, we'll repeat the technical part of the presentation, and after that, we'll continue with answers.
In the next slides, I'll be talking about technical aspects of audit control, DSV VK definitions, and POS export structure. So we can move on. The audits goes as follows. First, the auditor will check receipt if there are all elements printed on the receipt. There are several obligatory elements, and a few of them are from the TSC. For second step, audit can ask to get a POS export. The second step is actually what we are talking about in this webinar. And the last, what audit can ask, is the TSC export. In this slide, you can see the workflow of data from POS and the TSC and from the audit. POS generates transactions data and sends it to the TSC, which then signs it and makes it fiscalized. The transactions, which is now fiscalized, is sent back to the POS, and data is stored at the TSC. Fiscalized transactions must be stored on the POS as well. The data from POS and from the TSC must be able to be exported on demand by a tax audit. About data storage, in other words, the sales data must be stored in the POS system and in the TSC. Internally, data can be stored in any format in the POS. As a matter of TSC export, the data exported from TSC is expected to be in the .tar type of file. The export from TSC consists of transaction data, certificate, and device serial number. Data exported from the POS must be in CSV type of file, according to the DSFIN VK format. The export from POS contains three groups of data: transaction data, master data, and cash register balancing data. All the communications between POS and TSC, both internal and external communications, is defined by law. In order to make all this work, the German fiscal authorities proclaimed three interfaces: TSC API interface, Uniform Digital Interface, and Export Interface. Communication protocol is defined by BSI document. And transaction payload, which implies name, type, and description of each field, is defined in DSFIN VK. Today, we will be concentrated to the second one, DSFIN VK. If there is any interest to hear more about communication protocols defined by BSI, please write in the comments and maybe we can prepare a new webinar. Data structure in DSFIN VK is divided into the following modules: single transaction module, master data module, and cash register balance module. Those modules are consisting of several CSV files. This way is achieved to avoid excessive data storage. Single transaction module structure is represented by two groups of data: the individual receipt positions and accumulated data from individual receipt positions, called BONPOS and BONKOPF. First one, BONPOS, is also can be called with term item line structure because it contains individual transactions item with the assignment of exact VAT rate, quantity, type of items delivered, and etc. Individual receipt positions are split into the item line data, VAT line data, price line data, and additional line data. To better understand the BON-POS structure, imagine any receipt with several sold items. Each item is one line. So the BON-POS contains data for each line separately. But data from that one line is divided on the different CSV files. As a matter of BON-COP, we can call it as a receipt total structure. All values must correspond exactly to the values printed on the receipt. Receipt total is split into the total VAT data, receipt, references, billing assignment, and payment methods. BON-COP represents total amounts to all lines from the same receipt, but similar as a BON-POS, all data is divided into different CSV files. All those regulations, how data is split, as Alexander explained, enable an audit smooth and transparent check. In most of times, audit does not need to use all the CSV files. Potential fraud or avoidance to register and to pay tax can be spotted analyzing only a few of CSV files. The next one is master data module. Master data module must be recorded for each closing of the cash register. Every row in the master data is assigned to the appropriate cash register closure. The master data is divided into the following files: master completion, locations, cash registers, terminals, agencies, VAT, and TSC. I will give more details about this file in the last chapter of this webinar. Last group represents total of all end-of-day closures. The storage takes place in the free files. Now we will move on to the more detailed show of those files. Here it is a table which represents the BON-POS files. And the first column is original name in German. Then in the second column is English translation, and we have the name of the files. I will just say a few words about every of these files. As the first row, the BON-POS contains with line data, item descriptions, item number, quantity, factor of example container size, units measurements, price per unit, including VAT, or several VAT rates per item can be found. The pricing table, its origin is the price are stored and contains base price. VAT table is for each item. Item line information has to be specified. Additional info is used in hospitality for additional items. BON-COP tables are on the next slide. As a matter of BON-COP, general information including operation and customer data, description of the receipt type. There is also the total receipt tax per VAT rate. And maybe it will be interesting to say that billing assignment is the location information, which can be assigned to specific transactions like table or department. There are also defined payment methods and references. References are the operations which can be external systems made in this file. For the master data, we have master locations, where is stored the location on individual business locations with the cash registers. Information about special cash registers are in the master terminals. We also have the agencies, so this is the tables from the master files and cash closing register balance. Free files, GV type is for business operation category. The totals are displayed, separated by GV name, and the possible business operation types are shown in the appendix, which is the part of DS FinVK. Each method has own payment type, so it's also a part of an appendix definition. And the currencies, the total are shown in this file. Here is the picture of one presentation, how the cash closing is going on. The following fields define the basic details of the cash register balance. This table is available when you download the DS FinVK document, so it has everything graphically shown. At the end, this is the list of all CSV files you need to have from the POS export. And this is shown in colors by groups. The master data is orange, cash register closing is green, and the single records are blue. So here we see the structure.
I hope that now you have a clear understanding of technical part. Today in our studio is my colleague Borislav Vukic. Welcome, Borislav.
Thank you, Dragana.
Since a lot of questions rise during the webinar, we believe that this form of providing answers is much better than a written one. Borislav will now answer to all of your questions.
Thank you for all your questions. Your feedback means a lot to us. In order to provide best possible understanding, I will have to read the answers for the questions, especially the legal explanations. So let's start. I made a group of similar questions. The first group of questions is related to the TSC export. First question. I guess the TSC export can be automatically exported from the certificate TCA. All the certificate TCA solutions have built export. You need just to address calling functions defined in the TSC API. As for the response, you will get those data. Export the TSC can be done via the POS. The same answer is to just implement calling functions. For the TSC CSV file, how do we get the TCA data such as serial number or certificate to populate this? The same answer is to implement calling functions. The data should be read from the TSC, then the export to the CSV, right? This is the right affirmative. What is the content of the TSC export? TSC export consists of 3 files: transaction data, certificate, and serial number. Second group of questions are related to the files I mentioned. It can be downloaded from the internet. It's a public document, and in the email with this video, you will get 2 links. One link will be to the downloading the DS FinVK archive with all the examples. It's a public document, and the second, I will share the example of 2 CSV files I created. Unfortunately, DS FinVK is not available on English, it's only on German, but examples are on English. First group of questions are legal ones. I have seen Portugal on the list. What is about Spain? Spain does not have fiscalization the POS. One of our future plans is to cover legal part of the fiscalization in Spain. Deadline has been postponed to the March 31st, 2021. The BMF stands for the position that the deadline for the integration of the TSC with the electronic recording systems should be done until 30 of September 2020, as they have started the letter from August, same year. On the other side, the federal states have brought financial decrees on state level for possibility to be integrated until 31st of March 2021. It depends on the federal state. That depends on your solution, I believe, hardware versus software. The postponement doesn't depend on the type of the solution used. Differences can be found in the relation to requirements or conditions for postponement depending in which federal state is used. GoBD export is mandatory, right? Yes, it's under specific condition. This kind of export is very important during external audit, when inspector decides to expand investigation. GoBD export is a taxpayer responsibility. What is the content of GoBD export? The GoBD are the principles for the proper management and storage of books, records and documents in electronic form, as well as for data access. The GoBD regulate the legal requirements for proper bookkeeping and stipulate how electronic data and documents should be stored. In terms of content, it defines what information the tax auditor may assess in the context of an audit. The question of context must depend on the taxable interpreter and his business activities. Is there a document describing the GoBD export? The German Federal Ministry of Finance, in a letter dated 28th of November 2019, has revised the older version of the GoBD. This version is applicable from 1st January 2020. Also, this document can be found on the website of BMF. This is a question regarding issuing invoice in Germany. Is there a requirement for retailers to provide a full invoice to customers for every transaction where the amount is greater or equal than 250 euros? Invoices with the maximum total amount of 250 euros are considered small amount invoices. This type of the invoice doesn't need to have all the mandatory information as the regular invoice. Invoice with the total amount above 250 euro must have all the information defined by the law. What is your estimate? How many percentage of businesses are using the new fiscal TSC? It's really a challenge to define the percentage of companies which have already integrated the TSC with their POS. The number are different and depends on the federal state. In the end, the last group are the most interesting questions. I think export is implemented in the POS. There are several hundred, maybe 1,000 different POS solutions. I agree that most of them have own exports, but here we are talking about format which DS-FIN VK define. As I mentioned, it's mandatory to export tables like it's described in DS-FIN VK. Is it possible to read the exported TSC file, or can this only be done by the tax auditors? Yes, it's possible to read the exported TSC file. You can open it in the spreadsheet. I think the most solutions struggle with the fact that this combination from data, TSC, POS, master data, etc., potentially from different sources. I can agree with this, and this is pretty complicated, but I can assure you that it can be sorted. If you don't have tables or departments in our business, can we leave this table empty? It isn't precisely defined how this should be resolved, but empty fields are an option. Master TSC file must save all the TSC device serial numbers within the company. No, if there are multiple stores. I will explain this. This is a very good question. If you remember, each cash register must have own TSC, and each POS has own export. For this example, the auditor must visit multiple stores to get exports from all POS. Same as the TSC export, for every TSC is different export. For example, let's say you have 4 stores in free POS in every store. DSV Fin VK does not explain will the audit ask for exports for every POS or only one per store, but the retailers must provide it in every POS. Do you have any service covering the all necessary exports? On our webinars, we are not concerned on our services, so I'm glad you asked that. Yes, we do cover all the necessary exports. Only thing you need is to integrate with our middleware. For more information, please contact us. And the last question, should the CSV files be zipped into the one file? This is not strictly defined. I believe that option is only legal and logical solution for easier taking many files into the once, and the best practice is to have one archive file. That will be all the questions and all the answers. I hope it was helpful. Thanks you once again for your time and for your patience. Stay safe. See you soon. Bye.
During the webinar, you also asked if Fiscal Portal is our new product. With a great pleasure, I must say yes. Fiscal Portal is our new product. It's a worldwide, unique source and library of information and documents related to international fiscal laws for retailers and software vendors. Launch of Fiscal Portal is scheduled for the beginning of the following year, and through our webpage fiscal-requirements.com you can subscribe in order to be informed as soon as our portal is live. Also, I'm inviting you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's the first YouTube channel about fiscalization and hot topics in retail. I want to inform you as well about our next webinar, which will be held on November 25th, during which we will discuss the requirements of online fiscalization in Montenegro. Once again, thank you for your time and your attention. We are wishing you a great and healthy day. Bye.